Jerry Olsen, issue 12, Matt Fraction writing, Steve Lieber on the art. This is the final issue of this series, so take it away.
So, this book, all 11 of these 12 issues have been really Fraction jumping around to different stories of Jimmy with these Silver Agey like recap kind of things.
This is actually really focused. I think we only have the one quote unquote introduction page where we usually have like 4 or 5 times an issue, whereas this is just the once.
Right, which slows down the read. I got through this one probably quicker than any other Jimmy Olsen issue.
Me too. Did you still read the entire? I mean, most of the issues I've been reading the entire introduction page every time it happens.
Oh yeah, you have to.
Yeah, because it's not just like in the actual Silver Age comics. This introduction page was copy and pasted every issue.
Right.
Whereas in this pastiche
different.
of it, they have been different every time it showed up.
Even each multiple one's different. Like there'll be similarities, but and a lot of them is Fraction playing with language too. So like one of them was just all of Jimmy's different nicknames his brother and sister have called him.
Yeah.
You know,
but they've all been pretty funny at the very least.
Yeah. So, but here this one was like the most focused and actually the most in continuity that we've gotten.
Yeah, it referenced an issue of Action Comics.
Yeah.
And I want to quote the editor's note here, where it says, "See Action Comics 123, or just take our word for it."
Yeah.
For the editor's note, and I was like, "I will take your word for it. Thank you very much, editor."
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I appreciate it anyway because, I mean, the context was in the publisher being someone or other that Matt can probably say better than me.
Yeah, it's when they revealed that Leon, who the whole secret mafia story, she was the owner of the planet.
I don't listen to a word you guys say during Action Comics. But this editor's note was enough for me, honestly. Like compared to, I mean, even compared to Lois Lane, right, which had a handful of editor's notes over its run in regards to tie-ins to Superman and Action Comics. This was the most hands-off, in which, yes, this referenced current continuity, but the editor's note gave me exactly enough that I needed to get through this issue.
But so the main story comes to an end here with Julian Olsen being the one revealed to have put the hit out on his brother. So because the family's broke, like there's really nothing left, and that Jimmy spent, or that Julian was able to spend the money, to try to fix things to stop Luthor.
Yeah, we got a lot of this. I think it was last issue, maybe the issue before. We got a lot of this where Julian was the one like robbing the trust fund essentially, but because Jimmy hadn't accessed his portion of it, the only way he could get it was killing Jimmy.
Right, which he did on paper.
Yes.
Even though it didn't go through. So, and then Julian went and spent all that, and so that leaves them with nothing. And but Jimmy just wants to bring him to justice, and he gets help from Porcadillo, who tackles Julian as he's trying to leave.
I mean, even before we get to Porcadillo actually tackling him, the highlight of this issue might have been Julian Olsen getting hit in the face with a croc. There's the shoe.
Right.
And it being Porcadillo having flicked it at him. I don't know, that cracked me up.
Also, the jetway that he uses, or the stairs that he uses to get up onto the plane, is from Bluth Wayne, and it's the truck from Arrested Development, which I thought was a nice touch.
And he's just yelling Porcadillo as he runs up.
Also, the sound effect of him getting hit with the croc is Bacroc, which is pretty great. And Jimmy snaps a picture of it, and so they take this evidence and to clear Jimmy's name, and he can't believe that they're out of money, and his sister's like, we were thought to, we were raised as if the fortune was infinite, and Jimmy's like, well, no, infinity isn't really infinite. I've seen it, so he would know. And
you should enter, but Miss Tessmacher.
Right. And she drops off a box, and it's this box that we had seen Luthor going through, and she's very friendly about it. So it makes you think it's a trap, right?
Yeah.
Right. And so they start looking, and they go, wait, Lex used to have red hair. And wait, there's this picture of our family, and it brings up the lost Luthor Olsen, bloodline that was hinted at issues
all the way
ago.
back to those first like 1 to 3 issues of this run, where it was really tying into the old-timey Luther Olsen rivalry.
Right. And so Tessmacher tells him that, hey, you, as a blood relative to Lex Luthor, as proved right here in this box I just handed you, you have access to the Luthor family fund because you're related to him. The Olsens and the Luthers are actually one family.
Yeah, or they are since the 18th or 19th century, whatever that flashback was.
Right. And that by law, the family trust says that every expenditure requires a unanimous consent from the trustees. Let's see him outthink his way out of that one. And this
is fun to see Tessmacher kind of going against Luthor, because usually Tessmacher is just Luthor's.
Right, and you'd see that, but Luthor is that pastiche of I want to beat the person at their highest level, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't like to do things easily. So I wouldn't be surprised if it ever gets revealed. Fraction does a sequel series that Luthor wanted this because he knows he needs an extra challenge, right?
And that's a lot of this is Jimmy is now Luthor's rival, more than the way this series presents it as, more than Superman is.
He's not just a thorn in his side as Superman's pal. He is now, like you just said, on the same level. He is an actual rival of Luthor, because if Luthor wants to do anything,
nemesis.
Right? If Luthor wants to do anything above the board, as the Luthor business, he now needs Jimmy Olsen, and Janie for a lesser, right? Because they need unanimous decisions. So now this brings Lex in.
The presentation, at least. Jimmy forfeits that right in a pseudo blackmail.
Right.
But that's what he's entitled to, at least.
Right. And he tells him, look, I'll never let you spend another dime, but if you cover Janie and her place, her artistry, and if you fund the planet, I'll stay quiet about the Olsen family claim to the money, the Luthor money. And he gives him the box.
My favorite moment, when he calls him Uncle Lex.
Yeah. Right. So now it is, Luthor who admits that this was kind of his plan to turn the brothers on each other. The destruction of the stupid lion statue.
Where it was like, I lied. It was me. I didn't try to have you killed, but everything else was me.
Right. And then that leads to the Daily Planet. Smash cut to headline, Lex did it. Luthor confesses the citywide chaos campaign. And the dummy did it all on camera.
Is the publisher.
Right. Of the Daily Planet. So I'm wondering how this is going to go with action, right? Now
I'll tell you word for it. Yep.
He's the publisher. So now, not only is he the publisher of the Daily Planet, he is now Perry's boss.
Can we take a moment to acknowledge the moment where Perry calls him chief?
Mm-hmm.
That is maybe one of my favorite moments of this entire 12-issue series.
And on that same page, you have Lombard hucking a football at somebody and messing up the papers.
And Lois on anarchy. 2 phones at the same time.
2 phones at the same time. And, Superman comes up to him, and they're sitting on top of the Daily Planet, and Superman gives him a new... So I'm going to watch. Yeah. And, just lets him know that, as I know that you've taken care of yourself, you've never yet found yourself in more of a mess than you could manage. Just know that if you ever need, call me for help. Because the whole point of this was Jimmy wanted to do this without Superman. Superman's got enough going on. I'll do it.
And we know from the last issue that Superman did intervene a little bit, but without
towards the end.
Just right. He wanted to be that unseen help of, hey, I'm going to intervene a little bit. I'm going to do what needs to be done, but I'm not going to undermine my friend. I'm going to let him think he did it himself.
Right. So he leads him, to that hey, that's what friends are for, and that's what it ends on.
That's the final page is Jimmy and Superman. It's a full-page spread of Jimmy and Superman sitting on the planet going, hey, that's what friends are for, right? And
overlooking Metropolis is now these 2 are now de facto guardians of Metropolis, right? Like Jimmy's publisher of the Daily Planet. He kind of has a check on Luthor on certain things.
And Superman is Superman.
Right. So, and it's just, I really feel like Faction left his mark now. Like, he did tie it into continuity at the end.
You can tell me if I'm wrong, given that you've read the other, action of Superman more than me.
Right.
This feels more in continuity and setting itself in stone as its own thing more than Lois did to me in terms of the Superman family of books.
Right. Whereas with Lois, that led to Superman revealing who he was, and that whole section of her being in Chicago writing her book.
Yeah,
and
Lois
whatnot.
became a multiversal book. Don't get me wrong, but Jimmy became a Superman book, like a Superman family book.
Right.
Or a Metropolis book, if you will.
They both went to this big grand ending where they were kind of, this didn't really do anything different than Lois did towards the end, right? Like this was kind of always about Jimmy getting into scrambles but wanting to settle it himself. But then at the end it ties it back into he's still Superman's pal. But it does this more effectively than Lois did, because Lois did do the big grand multiversal thing.
For me, this lands better than Lois in the sense that for 11 issues, this was way entirely its own thing. And even in this final issue, it's mostly its own thing. It's just like, hey, look what I mean to Metropolis now. Whereas Lois became a multiversal issue.
It was more of Rucka's stamp, whereas this is Faction coming in and playing with Jimmy Olsen, but leaving him mostly the same. Whereas Rucka came in and was like, this was my idea for the DC universe and how we can rectify some of these problems going forward.
If I had to do it in a sentence, Lois became a Rucka book, whereas Jimmy became a Metropolis book.
Yeah.
And both are really, I mean, even though I had complaints last week about Lois, I think it was a really good book overall.
Yeah.
I think Jimmy kind of soared to higher heights in that it remained true to its focus, but managed to widen out to Metropolis without losing that. Whereas I think Lois widened out to the multiverse and lost some of what it was.
Right. But here too, if a peek from the solicits, Bendis has in there in Superman coming up, Jimmy's now the publisher or co-owner of the Daily Planet.
Oh, really? Okay. I didn't read.
That was in the solicits.
I look at who's on art for Action and Superman to see if you and Pete are still going to suffer, and that's about it.
Yeah. So that was in there. So that's going forward. That's why I'm glad that this has some bearing going forward.
Feels very in continuity in that sense, even though it's been as wacky and bizarre as it has.
As much as Jimmy Olsen can be, right? Because he's such this. Everything happens to him, it's still all there, even though it doesn't feel like it half the time. It's still mostly there.
So insane and all over the place, but it's actually very in continuity, is what you're saying, I think.
Right, exactly. It's basically on brand for Jimmy Olsen. I remember in New 52, they tried to make when, him and Clark were living together because Clark was aged down. The dynamic just really wasn't there. It was like, he was Superman's best friend, but there wasn't like this where he looks up to Superman. Where at the end here,
the last 2 pages of this, it's happened throughout this book. Don't get me wrong, especially in the first 2 or 3 issues. But in this final 2 pages, where he's sat on the planet with Clark, it's nailed it.
Right. Whereas I feel like at the end here, Jimmy started looking up to Superman, and Superman's looking up to Jimmy in a way, because he was able to handle this, and turns around like he's not just the goofy. It is a cover for a lot of what he does. So, and I think Faction just nailed it. And then the Steve Lieber art here, like, it's not as zany as it has been. Like, there's the Porcadillo tackling,
and throwing a
Julian.
crock at Luthor. But, I agree that Lee Bizarre is maybe as good as it's ever been in this issue,
if not better. Because even there were some issues where Lois was looking a little wonky, where you'd have to tell me that was Lois. Here, it's distinctly Lois Lane.
Like, the first page where it's Lois, I think, is in the Planet newsroom. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep.
But it's Lois from the second that starts.
But yeah, so hell of a way to stick a landing. I got to give Faction credit, because this is like really the first thing from Faction that I read that I've really loved outside of it was because of this I went back to Hawkeye.
Do you know what? Hawkeye was on sale, I think no, it was 2 weeks ago. I know it was 2 weeks ago because of personal reasons. That it was on sale. It was like $6 or something for the entire deluxe whole run. Nice. And I was like, oh, I'll grab that.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to read it. I've not read the final like 5 or 6 issues. So I can't wait to read it. Oh, man.
Yeah. As I can say here, he does know how to stick a landing because Hawkeye feels very much the same. He comes in and ties everything into a neat bow for whoever wants to do something next.
I lost track because of delays in the original run because Aja is not the best monthly artist.
No.
Let's be generous. And no, I love his art. It's fantastic.
No, but it's the
same thing with like, Gary Frank, right? Where
their process is one that leads itself to like, all right, it's worth the delays. Like, as long as it looks great when it's done, I'll deal with it. Which I got all the trades in front of me when I read it, so I wasn't impacted by that. But I do know from how I read the book that is why those issues with Kate were in there, were for Aja to get ahead. So
is it Aja, not Aja? I'll tell you what.
Aja, whatever it is.
I thought it was Aja. I'll vouch for Hawkeye by Fraction. I haven't liked anything else I've tried by Fraction, but I'll vouch for Hawkeye.
I mean, I'm a fan of Fraction. This is like the 3rd or 4th thing I've liked from him. But the point of that is, the delays hurt it to a point where I think this is because I think all of us can say we're DC people, not Marvel people, as a whole, where the delays hurt it enough that I fell off. But I'm looking forward to going back and reading all of it, including the ending this time.
It's Fraction gave me my I know she existed before, but Kate is my de facto second favorite Marvel character, and it's because of Fraction. And then
and that's you started reading
Kelly Thompson,
Gillen's Young Avengers. With her, right?
She's right. I'm almost done with that. And that book's fine. I'm not in love with it like others, but she's almost a background character, like a lot of with her. No bar.
That's like my favorite Marvel comic, but she's not the reason. It's Loki and the Hulk and stuff, which is like the forefront of that book.
Yeah. So, but no, Kate, and I credit with Fraction because it's that zaniness. When you go back and read the Kate stuff after you read Jimmy, there's a lot of similarities of him playing with the youth in
I read about
odd situations they get themselves into.
I think I read about 15 issues of that book before the delays made me kind of call it.
Well, once you get to youth, let me know.
Yeah, I mean, it was the last thing I bought on Comixology as a trade on sale, because of things that are happening in life. Where I was before I realized I couldn't afford it as much. I was like, gotcha. I'll buy that.
Yeah, and then $6 is that's forgivable. I mean,
it was about that. I think in pounds it was like $4.50 or $4.70 or something like that. And I was like, for like that whole run, yes, please. And I'm really looking forward to reading it, especially after reading this issue of Jim Olsen. Honestly, was a fantastic way of closing off this run in tying in a lot of things that has happened over this run, like even the last 2 or 3 issues with the crazy spaceship stuff, and it ties it into stopping Julian escaping. Was fantastic.
Yep. He knows how to execute a plan. So, but yeah. So, what's you rating this one?
I'm giving it a 9 because I can't dare to give it anything less.
Yeah, I'm giving it a 9.5. That's how much I love this.
I don't blame you.